Yo, what's going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped back for another OPTC video, and in today's video, we're taking a look at the INT team, and specifically how to counter said INT team. Now, I did put out a video, 2 days ago, declaring this team to be the best team in the game right now. INT is pretty much in a league of its own. It's well jump slashes, it's well jump strength, and it's doing some very, very crazy things, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side of PvP. And this particular season, obviously built around kind of Blackbeard, everyone's running this particular team in the top sort of 500-ish, or top 100, I should say, as their defensive build. So I thought, hey, let's put out a video with how to counter said INT team. Now, this particular team you guys see me using, it does have some pretty exclusive characters that were on some banners that a lot of people probably skipped. Stuff like Frankie, stuff like Usopp. I feel like lots of people skipped their banners, and understandably so. On top of that, S-Shark wasn't that desirable either, but look, he's replaceable with literally any other shooter unit. You don't have to use S-Shark. Something like S-Bear or whatnot would actually suffice, or just running, like I said, any other shooter character on the bench, Raja Shinobu, anything like that would be a very, very good addition to your bench line. But this particular team works very, very well. It's not foolproof. It's not going to beat every single INT team every single time. It's just going to have the highest success rate from what I've found in particular in this championship. Remember, this is the championship as of September the 8th, 2024, and this is what's working the best right now for said rule set. The rule set is buffing stuff like INT, it's buffing stuff like strikers, it's buffing stuff like powerhouse characters, and it's buffing shooters. So this particular DEX team is built up around powerhouse and shooter class units. Ace is an absolute demon. Kaido hits like a goddamn truck. Pell's level limit break is so goddamn elite. And then Frankie, if you had 5 shooters on the team, works great alongside Usopp and his nerfing capabilities, whilst also buffing Frankie with his particular passive. So it's been working the best for myself. Like I said, it's not foolproof. I have taken a few L's here and there. Ideally, if you guys see any variation of the INT team that involves Blackbeard, Luffy, and Yamato, I would highly recommend hitting the refresh button. I feel like there is no harm in just hitting that refresh button and moving on, because, like, the team is crazy, man. The INT team is absolutely insane. Now, you could do some, like, disgusting things and run, like, Jin, Sanji, and Wano Law 6+. Like, that will definitely work as well. But in saying that, lots of people aren't going to have Sanji, Jin, and 6+ Law. I mean, look, a lot of people probably have that more than this. Sanji being just like a regular legend, lots of people might have picked him up on something like a ticket. If you got lucky and picked Jin, you can do some fun stuff there, and then run like I don't know who else nerfs INT in terms of the Psy team. You could probably run like Enel as well, Rebecca Toy Soldier, but like there's not a lot of slashes. So like I said, Jin, Sanji, and Wano Lord kind of just do all the work for you. However, Psy's not really getting that much help from the rule set this season, so, and obviously I don't have Jin, so running this particular team was going to be the best thing for my account. Another team that actually works very, very nicely, and I've seen a lot of people use, is the Quick team, with Verse Luffy, with Roger and Odin, Smoothie, Cross Guild, and Tesoro. You can do some really, really fun stuff, but I kind of lost faith in that team just a little bit. It wasn't doing as well as what this DEX team actually does. So it's another team for you guys to use if you guys want to see that particular team in a video. Let me know in the comment section below. I will be sort of uploading this sort of the back end of championship though, so the rule set will be different as of when this sort of team kind of goes out. But right now, both the INT team and the team you guys see me use, they're both getting buffed. So starting off with Ace. Ace is an absolute monster. He is just like a must bring on the DEX team. He gives a massive passive to the entire team, as long as you bring a Garp, Luffy, or Sabo onto your team. Now, for this team, I'm running Garp on the bench. Any 20 cost Garp will work. The free-to-play 5+ Garp from Kazuna Shop, he will definitely work. Unfortunately, you can't run a Luffy because we have Verse Kaido. It is a downside to the unit, and no, Verse Kaido will not trigger Ace's abilities, even though technically he does have Luffy in his name. Verse Kaido is a different unit, so he will not trigger the passive of Ace. I have tested this. It does not work. You have to find a way to bring either a Sabo or a Garp character on your team. So Garp's on the back end of the bench there, purely just to satisfy the conditions of Ace. If you don't satisfy the conditions of Ace, Ace is just lost. He's just nowhere near as good. Next, we got Verse Kaido. Verse Kaido is an absolute monster. I'm so close to Limit Break expanding my Kaido versus Luffy, just because obviously it's 2 units. Getting the most out of a verse character with the Limit Break expansion satisfies 2 particular PvP teams, so I'm thinking about doing that, but obviously I want to wait until part 3 of the Super Sugo for One Piece Day Celebration comes out, and then I guess I'll make that decision then. But Kaido hits so damn hard. He goes through defense. He just does a lot of damage. And he goes after something like Frankie or Ace, where you've already dropped the defense. Then in the first sort of 50 seconds, not only is his second shot going through defense hitting very hard, but the first shot is hitting ridiculously hard too. Pell's an absolute weapon. His level limit break now hits 2 characters, which is just absolutely disgusting. On top of adding an extra stack to all of his passive, he buffs Dex and he buffs Powerhouse characters. He gets level 3 CD reduction to Powerhouse units. So as you can see, our middle core being Kaido, Pell, and Frankie are all Powerhouse units. So they are getting that extra 3D on top of the 3D that Ace actually gives as well. Frankie, in the first 40 seconds, goes absolutely ballistic. The downside to Frankie, though, is you do need 5 shooters on the team. But once you have Ace on the team, and then Frankie, realistically, all you have to do is satisfy, 2 more shooters or 3 more shooters after them. So it's not really that hard to do. Plus, Frankie gets the most out of his attack if you guys bring a Straw Hat character. Now, downside is if you guys are running versus Kaido, you can't bring a Luffy, which would satisfy both the conditions of Frankie and Ace. However, you can run Usopp's. Whether you're running the PvP Rare Recruit Usopp, whether you're running the Treasure Map Usopp, both of them will actually work. But I found that getting that extra level 5 attack for Frankie in the front helps out a lot, because most of the time the bench isn't doing that much for you. Yamato obviously is a huge problem, and Yamato can sort of nuke your team, lower stats, kill units, so the bench has to come in. But stereotypically, 9 times out of 10, like, you're not really worried about it too much. Finally, we have Usopp. Usopp's great because he actually lowers the CD reduction. I found Usopp to be just like a mini version of this Blackbeard. Very, very good unit for Dex teams. Great being a shooter character. Buffs the entire crew as well. But what he does is he applies the damage over time, just like Blackbeard does, and he also does a very small rollback. On top of that, he lowers CD reduction by level 3. His passive lowers it by level 2. So you are slowing the enemy team down, allowing your team to go just a little bit faster. So that's the front line. It's a very, very strong front line, which is great. And then the bench, you have units like S-Shark, which again, you could run like Kuma or Rise of Shinobu, anything like that. I found S-Shark to be the best option, just because now you have a counter mechanic in the back end of the fight. And if you do get hit with just normal attacks, the S-Shark is going to output a lot of damage. He does buff fighter characters, but he does have part of his passive that buffs Dex. But at the back end of the fight, I have a Kainu 6+, the newer 6+, who can actually buff all Dex characters and is a fighter. And then Garb's also a fighter too. Now, Garb's just solely buffing fighter characters, so I found that S-Shark can work very, very nicely, but the bench is pretty interchangeable. As long as you're running 2 shooters on the bench, and then you have Garp, or some sort of Sabo, you are going to be absolutely fine to just satisfy the norm of basically all of the requirements that you need for this particular team. Garb's triggering Ace, the shooters, you got the 5 shooters with Ace, Frankie, and Usopp, and then your 2 bench characters, and that way you're doing a lot of damage there. So the team works great. It's a very, very strong team, and Dex and Quick definitely have risen on my radar as very, very powerful teams. Just seeing what they can do against this INT team is very impressive. Slashes get absolutely destroyed. Strength get absolutely destroyed. Side definitely can work, like I said, but it does need some very, very illustrious pieces of the puzzle. And if you don't have those pieces, then look, you're not really going to be doing too much. But like I said, this team isn't 100% foolproof. Well, while I was in this recording, I actually lost the last fight. I'll kind of fast forward to the end of that fight just to show you guys what can happen if you have like less investment than your opposition. Because look, PvP, it's still an RNG fest. Your goal is to reduce the RNG as much as possible, sway it into your favor, and then try and get the dub that way. The INT team is absolutely disgusting though. 9 times out of 10, the core INT team will have Blackbeard, Yamato, and Rush INT Luffy. Those 3 characters are the big 3 that kind of make up the team, and probably what you'll see on most teams. Other than that, you'll probably find that the team has something like Nami Karina, or utilizes something like 6+ Bonnie. I was using Nami Karina for a little while, but have kind of swayed over to the whole 6+ Bonnie works a little bit nicer. I'm still a big fan of using Nami Karina on that team, but Bonnie just kind of gives a little bit more being just straight INT buffing. But whether you use Nami Karina, whether you use Bonnie, the team works very, very nicely. The other unit on the team is usually just like a pretty big damage dealer. 9 times out of 10, it will be S-Hawk. S-Hawk obviously the best PvP legend in the game. Goes absolutely ballistic with how much damage output he has. He buffs slashes, but he also buffs into units, so he's giving himself a lot of passive as well. And you can do some really, really fun stuff, or you basically have to take a lot of damage if you do go up against him. The thing with S-Hawk is he goes through defensive effects, so he kind of negates what Blackbeard and Yamato are doing with dropping defense. So some other options you might see in the front is stuff like a Poo for some cooldown reduction. You might see something like Smoker for the special mind mechanic, or you might see some other sort of big damage dealing unit, or some other powerhouse big damage unit, maybe something like Moria for half stats and stuff like that. But 9 times out of 10, like I said, you will pretty much see S-Hawk. As to the bench, it'll pretty much just be 3 powerhouse units. That way it's triggering Blackbeard's passive, and Blackbeard's getting all his nerfing capabilities. So 9 times out of 10, that's basically what it'll look like. Now, this particular team right here, I believe this is the one that gave me grief, if I remember correctly. I do want to showcase the loss as well. As you guys saw, I just got like a whole bunch of wins back to back to back. So most of the time, this team's actually going to win. But like this INT team, dude, it's so ridiculous how powerful this INT team is. And obviously when specials go, and depending on what order you get hit by, if Luffy somehow creeps in and blows away Ace and hits Usopp to then lose your passives, you're just going to take a hell of a lot of damage on your core unit. So it's a bit of a shame with that. Blackbeard is a monster. He rolls back specials. He applies level 10 damage over time, which is just so much damage. On top of that, he's basically just nerfing everyone. Lowering attack, lowering speed, lowering defense, I believe, which is absolutely nuts. And if you partner that with Yamato with her level 15 stat drops on top of her 7,500 fixed damage, it's just very hard to counter those 2 mechanics. As you guys can see there, Ace just took 9,000 damage from damage over time, which is basically what took him out. Once we lost Ace, it was pretty much over. We don't really have that much damage behind us now, and we lose level 3 CD. After that, we got hit by Luffy. We still had some pretty good defense here, but like once now we lose Usopp, we have no Usopp passive, which is just a little bit annoying. So when Pell comes in, Pell's just not hitting that hard anymore, and we're just in a really, really bad spot. S-Hawk comes through. S-Hawk basically is just going to take out 3 units now because we're running a 4-man team, and from here it's basically over. So as you can see, like there are chances that you can lose, and look, RNG in the PvP game mode can be just an absolute bitch. But if you guys do have this team, try it out because it is working quite well against INT.